We are going to talk about the NFL draft this whole episode. We're going to pretty much break it down, the big picks, talk about our team's picks, etc. I got a little bit something to say about the Rams selecting another tight end. Like, come on, man. What we doing? What we doing in LA? But let's just go ahead and get right into it, fellas. The first overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft is Indiana Hoosiers quarterback Fernando Mendoza going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, me and Randall talked about this, Hamilton, last time. We assumed Fernando was going to go to the Raiders, but we also coupled that with them signing Kirk Cousins to that 5-year contract. And also keep in mind, Randall did point out that it's not a guaranteed full 5 years. Like they can get out of it in a couple years. But it does make for a interesting situation. So, Hamilton, I want you to start this off. First of all, what was your reaction by the Raiders picking Fernando Mendoza? Do you think he's going to see the field this year with Kirk Cousins there? And what is his future going to be like with his impact going to be like with the Raiders?
I think a lot of people seen this coming, Stacey, to be honest with you. I don't think it was that much of a surprise, especially with the way Geno Smith and that whole other, Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, that coaching staff and that offensive style got pushed out. Yeah, I wasn't surprised at all. I think Fernando Mendoza is gonna be. He was balling at Indiana, so I would love to see him. I think he should sit out. To answer your question, I think they got Kirk Cousins. If I'm not mistaken, Randall, it was like a guaranteed 2 years, and then the other like 3 years or something was just stipulations and like bonuses and stuff like that. So I mean,
Yes.
kind of the same situation he was dealing with in Atlanta. Situation he's now familiar with. I think should be the day one starter. Well, remains to be seen in the Raiders. I don't really have high hopes of the Raiders right now. So let Mendoza develop this season. Maybe let him get the last 2, 3 starts of the year. If the Raiders are looking how they was looking last year, then maybe he should, maybe halfway towards the season he should start. But this is the Raiders ain't going to do much this year. So why put your quarterback out there to get beat up on? Let him rest, let him develop, and let Kirk Cousins do what he's going to get paid for.
Do you see Mendoza as a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback in the future, or just a solid starter? Like, what you think his ceiling is going to be in the league?
I mean, he got a 90. ESPN gave him like a 92, so he was up pretty up there high as far as his grade. Um, I think yeah. I mean, he's a first round pick. He's number one pick. He had a great season last year at Indiana. The ceiling, I would say, ceiling could be Peyton Manning. I could say the floor could be like I know it could be the ceiling could be Peyton Manning. I mean, ceiling. But I'm not saying what he's going to be. I'm saying, but like,
That's a
I can
high
see this
ass
guy.
ceiling, though.
I mean, I could see this guy being a two-time Super Bowl winner. Seasons where he's the leader in touchdowns. I can see that. I can see that as a ceiling. Remember, the key word is ceiling. I'm not saying this is what he's projected to be. I'm saying I could definitely see that as a ceiling, though. I think he had a different level of swagger in college. I think he had moxie in college. I think he was accurate. A lot of people don't talk about that. He was pretty accurate. Accuracy is a lot, matters a lot. So yeah, I could say that. Drew Brees, it could be another comp, but I'm gonna go with Peyton Manning because a ceiling is what you expect someone's top notch to be, and I always like to believe a number one overall pick can reach that. So
Okay, yeah. I get your points. I get your points. Now,
y'all was
Randall,
gonna take my head off. I said Peyton Manning. I was like both of y'all. It's the ceiling of it.
yeah,
Ceiling.
that is a high
That,
ceiling.
that's
Like
that's
that's
still a very it's just that's a super high bar, right?
yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna be any Super Bowl caliber quarterback you thinking of is kind of that ilk, right? Now, okay, he might not have all the stats of a Peyton Manning, right? So he might not have, the lead the league in passing yards every year and stuff like that. But I can see him leading the league in passing yards a couple seasons. I can definitely see him getting hot. I mean, a guy who's that accurate. I mean, come on. If you can transfer that accuracy from college to the NFL, that's going to be big. Peyton Manning was accurate.
Yeah, true that, true that. Now, Randall, we already kind of talked about this last time. Now that Mendoza is actually a Raider, do your feelings still stay the same as him going in, competing with Kirk Cousins for that starting job, or sitting behind him, etc.
I think it'll probably be a scenario like it was with, like, for example, like Baker Mayfield and Tyrod Taylor, where instance where like Tyrod Taylor I think started like the first like several games of the season. I think Fernando Mendoza will get a chance to play in his rookie season. I think probably about I think right about like week 7, 8 ish. Like I don't think, and like I do agree with him in the sense that like I don't think the Raiders are going to be going anywhere. Like they still have a lot of holes on their roster. Like and the main thing obviously with any quarterback is that we gotta see like what type of protection he gets and like whether like the Raiders were able to at least have some improvement on the offensive line and throughout the off season. And also I think it's also going to be very imperative to see what the new head coach Clint Kubiak. I think because they have a new head coach there with them, like I think they can afford to just like have him sit for like, if they wanted to do what Ham's approach it was, which is sit him for a whole season, then they could possibly do that, just given the fact that like he is like a first year player under their program, so like they could just give him time to learn the system. And I think as far as his success on the field, it's really going to come down to whether how quickly he's able to get in that playbook and process information, because coaches have to be able to trust that you can be able to run their system and be able to get all the terminology down and be able to recite it to everybody else in the huddle. So I think it's really going to come down to whether how he's going to be able to process that information. Now, I do agree with him in the sense about his accuracy, and I think his decision making. I think his decision making in the pocket, I think, was very impressive at Indiana. So I think if he's able to really adapt to Clint Kubiak's system and really be able to take in all that information, then I think you'll probably see him on the field sooner rather than later.
Now, if not Peyton Manning, Randall, what you think his ceiling is in the NFL? Like, how far do you see this guy going with the Raiders, or just in general in his NFL career?
I think Drew Brees is a little bit more of a fair comparison. And I would actually another honorable mention. I would actually even say like a Dak Prescott, because even Dak, like he's put up some really solid numbers throughout his career. Like
Ceiling?
I think Dak's probably more of the like floor, I would say. But now, of course, Peyton Manning was known as like his information processing, like being the offensive coordinator on the field. So like that's another element to where like when you're talking about Peyton Manning, like is he going to be able to like run like a whole be the whole
I miss
system? Like that's another element of Peyton
I
Manning
miss
too.
being on with y'all cause we gonna get into it right now. Cause y'all was looking at me like I was crazy for saying Peyton Manning, but Randall gonna say Drew Brees, right? But then Randall gonna say Penny Manning 6'5". Well, hell, Fernando Mendoza 6'4". So how far off was I really off on that? Like I feel like Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, these are Super Bowl caliber winning quarterbacks, excuse me. They both are extremely accurate. They both, when it's all said and done, they're like somewhat top. They're both top 5 in passing yards all time, career passing yards. I mean, like this cat's 6'4". We seen how he was moving in college, and I understand like okay, just because he was nice in college doesn't always necessarily translate. But I mean, like everyone's talking about this dude got a different like swagger to him. He's 6'4" and he accurate. So I'm just like, man, like I could see this dude like again, maybe not the top 5 in passing yards in career passing yards when it's all said and done. But I could see bro winning a Super Bowl, winning 2 Super Bowls, getting a couple of seasons where he's like, he leads the lead in passing yards and stuff like that. Now I understand he got to find some people to throw the ball to, but I mean, get him a receiver and see what happens 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line. You know what I'm saying? Or
He's
even
in
on
a
his
tough
rookie deal.
division, man. Like Patrick Mahomes is in the division, man. Like he's
But
like
Pat out
there's a
right
lot of
now.
quarterbacks. Like
I know he in
they,
the I know he in
they
the
still.
AFC West. I know it's a
So I mean,
gauntlet.
like it's
Everyone's
because even
nice.
winning a
All the
couple.
quarterbacks.
But even
Yeah,
like when it comes
Justin
to winning a
Patrick.
couple Super Bowls, like there's some great
Of course.
quarterbacks like the Lamar Jacksons and Joe Burrows that still haven't won a Super Bowl yet, and it's like or Josh Allen, like this, like it's really hard to say like someone's gonna win a couple of Super Bowls, man. Like even if you are talented, like I think I think he is gonna be a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. I do believe that. But now, as far as winning a couple of Super Bowls, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask,
I
man.
mean, but
Yeah, I can see all the points. I can see all the points. I would say to wrap this up that like you were saying, Hamilton, I do like his aura, his leadership skills, his mentality, and I think he's gonna do well in the NFL. My biggest concern is the Raiders themselves. We seen
Yes.
them we
That's a whole
seen them
different
over the
story.
years,
Yeah.
man.
Like,
That's a whole
We
different story.
um, outside of the Rams taking the quarterback at 13, I know you guys are gonna get into that, so I'm not gonna get into it that much myself. But I think one of the main ones that stood out to me was Kansas City trading up from 9 to 6 to take the corner out of LSU to replace Trent McDuffie, who they just traded to the Rams. The other first round pick that they got from the Rams, they used that to draft the defensive tackle from Clemson that who you never know could eventually be like a Chris Jones replacement. So I know Chris Jones is still one of the highly paid players, but you saw some of his play kind of take a bit of a step back last year. Like he didn't play at the same level that he did in previous years. So it kind of begs the question of like are we seeing a bit of a so is this kind of going to be the start of the new youth movement with Kansas City when it comes to Patrick Mahomes coming off an ACL injury? I think now, the last time Kansas City, they made these kinds of moves in the first round, that's when they moved off of Tyreek Hill, and then they ended up, drafting some adequate players to replace him. So, I thought that was an interesting aspect to where Kansas City is like this kind of, or these draft picks kind of going to be the new foundation for them retooling, especially on the defensive end under Steve Spagnuolo's system.
I agree. I definitely agree. Hamilton, out of all the first round picks that transpired, what which selection stood out to you the most?
Ooh, I had this. Okay, so the one that stood out to me the most, and low key not for a good way, but um,
Oh,
yeah, the one that was really kind of a head scratcher was to me was the Cardinals pick. I just feel like when you pick a running back that high, like he gotta be like kind of like how Zeke was with the Cowboys, like off the bat, like off rip. He just got to come in like balling. You know what I'm saying? Well, it remains to be seen. I know Jeremiah Love, he had a nice year with Notre Dame, um, and I don't want to take nothing away from him. I just feel like when you draft somebody that high, I mean, look at we was just talking about the Raiders earlier. Look at what happened with them and Ashton Genty. Now I know Ashton Genty almost got to 1,000 yards this season, but um, it ain't really translate to anything. So I just feel like there's other pieces that the Cardinals could have really plugged up and secured.
Because I think like as an overall prospect, because Stacey was talking about how like as far as just an offensive player prospect, like he had him ranked higher than Mendoza as far as like just
Mhm,
as far as talent is concerned.
mhm.
Like he was actually considered like the best. Like he was actually considered like for my mini scouts and everybody to be like the best overall offensive
Prospect.
prospect in the draft. So, but I think basically what this kind of begs like the age old question is like, do you draft for need or do you draft the best player available? So like a lot,
Mm,
so sometimes like I think so I'm looking at it as far as the Cardinals probably just looked at it as far as like we're gonna take the best player available and then just kind of and basically just be able to kind of fit it. Now, I definitely think they probably could have taken like there's probably a couple of edge rushers they probably could have taken because I mean Arizona is one of the worst teams when it comes to getting to the quarterback in the league. So I think if you wanted to go a different position like as far as need, they probably could have went in that direction. But I guess they probably just look at it as like okay like we're gonna draft like the best player available, and then I guess when it came to the quarterback, they were probably thinking that okay, we can get someone like a Carson Beck in the second round. So I was like, okay, we may not have to use our first round pick at quarterback.
that's,
right,
look,
right.
honest, that's valid. That's valid. I can't really say anything to rebuttal that. I agree with that. Still, I
Mhm.
mean, they had what's his name, Ty Simpson, up there though, and they let him pass. They still let him pass. So Jeremiah Love really must be he must be one hell of a player, like NFL ready, about to really make some noise this season. You kind of have to be one of your running backs. So,
Hmm.
I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to take nothing away from him. If they drafted him that high, and you telling me that everyone thought he's like the best skills position player in the draft, then more power to him. But I still a little head scratching to me a little bit. But it's a good question. Do you draft whoever is the best available or by need? And I think it's a team by team basis, honestly, team by team
Yeah,
basis. On
yeah. As always, like there's no like right or wrong answer because like that's a question that always like that's a question that's always that these draft rooms that all these folks that work with these organizations like that's what they argue about like all these these several months when it comes to the draft process because like they go back and forth like do we draft need or do we just take who's the best guy available. So yeah, that's the age old dilemma. So like there's no right or wrong answer or exact science to this thing.
Right. Yeah. You just never know what's going to pop off. Couple picks that I want to bring up that I'm interested to see how they're going to develop. The Cleveland Browns picking up Casey Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. They desperately need number one wide receiver on their team because I don't think Judy is going to get it done there. So they definitely need to develop somebody. And then also the Seattle Seahawks picking Jadarian Price with the 32nd pick to replace Kenneth Walker. And the only reason why Price wasn't the number one overall pick because his teammate is Jeremiah Love. So we'll see like can he like separate himself when it comes to that because Jeremiah Love was getting basically all the love, but you got this guy like not too far right behind him. So he could be that sneakily good player, especially with a team that has question marks at running back. With like I said, Kenneth Walker being gone, and then Charbonnet, we don't know how he's going to bounce back from his injury. So myself and Hamilton's team is the Los Angeles Rams, and we saw that they picked Ty Simpson at 13. And well, I'm pretty sure Hamilton, you saw that reaction video of Sean McVay. That's first of all, it's not a good look, coach.
Oh yeah.
It's not. You got to learn how to play that off a little bit, man. Like don't do that. But but they picked the quarterback. We know we kind of know the story, Hamilton. Like Matthew Stafford, yes, coming off an MVP season. However, he's in the twilight of his career. We don't know how many years he got left. We already said the Rams, they're going to need to build up for the future. They're going to need a quarterback. I know they got Stetson Bennett, but I think we don't buy into Stetson Bennett, unfortunately. And then we don't have a backup quarterback that can come in right away and do something. So when you saw the Rams pick Ty Simpson, Hamilton, what was your reaction with that?
Okay, first and foremost, I do feel like what's the point of Stetson Bennett? I mean, like he's been on the team for like a couple seasons now. I feel like have we not developed him or not? Like that, you know what I'm saying? So that's the first thing I was thinking. I was like, yo, like I when last seen Stetson Bennett was like low key balling in the preseason. Now I know it's the preseason, but he was doing his thing. So I'm like, is what happened with the development there? Um, but I guess if you are Les Snead, I guess you're going for the big name in this case, Randall, because it wasn't about filling what we need necessity wise. I don't feel like we need a quarterback. I understand that Matthew Stafford is on his way out. Simpson's not going to help us this season, and we're Super Bowl like now, like Super Bowl caliber. Like we trying to get to the Super Bowl in LA next season. So why draft a quarterback that's not going to really do nothing to help us when we could have drafted a big piece on defense, or we could have drafted somebody on defense. That kind of threw me off a little bit. Um, I mean, from what I've heard about Simpson, like I heard Ty Simpson is the real deal. I hear he's pretty accurate too. I hear he can throw some ballsy throws. People have been saying that his ceiling is Mac Jones, Brock Purdy is his ceiling is from what I've heard. So, take that for what you will. But I just felt like we're Super Bowl now. Why not get a piece on defense? Because that was the part last year that was really really struggling. Or why not get another receiver to offset Puka and Devontae. I think about that as well because we don't know how Puka. Hopefully, I'm praying Puka comes back. Mind right, body right, all that kind of stuff. But just in case he's not, we gonna need somebody else to step up. Maybe be that third or fourth guy for us. But yeah, I just felt like the quarterback first round, unless we're Super Bowl now, you don't need that.
When I saw the draft board and the Rams getting closer and closer to making their selection, I was like, okay, we're gonna pick Makai Lemon because it seemed like we need a young wide receiver. Because Devontae, we might move off Devontae after this season because he only signed a 2-year contract, and like you said, Puka is kind of going through it right now with trying to rehab himself. And I was like, okay, we're gonna get Makai Lemon. But Ty Simpson, I'm not necessarily mad at that pick either. I think our biggest need in free agency was cornerback. Like I was saying to Madden's and the other guys, I was like, we was one Patrick Surtain the second away from winning the Super Bowl. I believe if we had that, we would have won the Super Bowl, and we got Trent McDuffie. So that's good. I think
That's
Ty
better than
Simpson.
anybody they could have taken in the draft.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. I've been saying this for the past 2 or 3 seasons. I'm like, man, we need a young quarterback we can develop and that could step in once Matthew Stafford retires. And I think this was a good pick. Like, I don't think we have nothing to lose with this. We can develop him. He can come in about a couple years. I don't think he's that too far off from Mendoza. I think Mendoza has a couple steps ahead of Ty Simpson, but he's not that too far off far as ability. I just hope that Sean McVay kind of softens his stance on them picking Ty Simpson and like really like buy into this guy, because if he sticks around, let's say Matthew Stafford retires 2027, he sticks around another 3 years, that's going to be your guy quarterback. So if hopefully they develop that relationship, but I'm not mad at the pick, but I was expecting Makai Lemon to be our pick when he
I
was
mean,
available.
Stacey, let me ask you real quick. Looking at Sean McVay's face from the outside looking in, like, what do you think that tells you? Like, and I'll open up that question to Randall as well. You know, being you with the journalism, Randall. Like, what is that? The body language to me kind of looks like somebody who wants to win right now, somebody who's not thrilled with the decisions that are being made by their boss. How long does a Sean McVay want to stay? Does he even want to sit there and have to develop another quarterback? He wasn't really feeling that whole development when it came to what's his name in the first place,
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. So I mean, like he wants a quarterback that knows what he's doing and veteran caliber. Is McVay the right dude? I mean, again, I'm thinking about Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett was a two-time uh, college champion. You mean again? I looked at him in preseason last year, and he was balling out. So I'm like, where's the development right there? Is he trying to develop this dude? Is he more focused on Super Bowls?
I mean, in football, you have to rely on a lot of your rookies. I mean, I think it's different when it comes to developing quarterbacks because quarterbacks take a little bit more time. But I mean, like, because for example, like as an Eagles fan, like we relied on Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell at corner, who were both rookies at the time, and both of those guys, they were two of our main reasons why we ended up winning that Super Bowl. So I mean, like there are rookies that do come in and play, but I think when it comes to Sean McVay and like his like the look that he had on his face, I think it's clearly that was clearly a Les Snead decision and not necessarily a Sean McVay decision. And I think to your point, Ham, I think he probably thinks like in the short term, there's probably more immediate needs that we have that the Rams probably had. Like, okay, we could probably use like a safety or a linebacker or something to that effect. But at the same time, I do agree with Stacey in the sense that like long term, that like it probably may end up being the right move for the Rams big picture because think about this, like when the Green Bay Packers drafted Jordan Love back in 2020, just like the Rams, the Packers were coming off of an NFC Championship game appearance where they lost to the Niners, and I think Aaron Rodgers, I think he either won the MVP that year or I think he was either first or second
2020,
in
I
the
think he won the
MVP.
MVP that year.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, I think he did win the MVP back in 2019.
2019.
But yes, he was coming off an MVP season that year, but they still ended up taking Jordan Love, and Jordan Love, and like, he ended up sitting for a few years. So I think there's a chance that they plan on having Ty Simpson sit for a few years. Like it's not going to be like you probably won't be able to get in this year or next year. I guess maybe they just probably just don't have as much faith or trust in Stetson Bennett. If Ty Simpson ends up panning out in camp, they probably are going to move off of Stetson Bennett probably during training camp, and then they'll just let him be the backup. So I think that's probably that's probably going to be the long term vision for what they have in that quarterback room. But as far as McVay and him being able to develop quarterbacks, I do think that is a fair question to ask that you bring up, Han, because because he did get to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, so it's not like he didn't make great strides with Jared Goff. But I think but he just he realized that in order to take it to the next level, he needed somebody that had those special gifts that Stafford ended up having. So
Agreed.
I said this back when the Packers picked Jordan Love, and then they was talking about Aaron Rodgers had an attitude about it. I was like, Aaron Rodgers, you need to just get over yourself. Because eventually they're going to have to develop a quarterback. You want to keep that train going, especially if you're a good organization. And I'm going to say the same thing to Sean McVay. Get over yourself, dude. Like, if you're a good organization, you want to keep that winning tradition going after your guy leaves, your franchise guy leaves. You don't want to be in a position where you at the top of the mountain, then you fall right off, and then you got to start all the way over. Um, they can do that at the same time. They one of the teams that could do it at the same time where they're Super Bowl now, and then they got guys waiting in the wings. Sean McVay, he may not like the selection, but I think he needs to respect it. I think Les Lee was in the right. Ty Simpson, like I said, he's not going to affect the team right away. He's not going to take anything away. He's just going to ride the bench for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then he'll be ready. Now, Sean McVay, he can retire at the same time Matthew Stafford if he want to, but either way, you're gonna have a guy there that can step in and do something. You're not putting your franchise at risk as far as like winning. So, like I said, I agree with the pick. Sean McVay can have attitude all he wants, but this was necessary for the Rams' future.
Well, I think it'd be a complimentary piece. Like he seems to be like more of like a possession receiver. Like he doesn't have like the best like raw speed, but he is like a possession receiver, and he does have like the ball skill to be able to go up and go get it. So and I do like he does have a bit of a dog mentality. So I think I think he could definitely be a solid wide receiver too. Now I do think the Eagles we're gonna rely on Devontae Smith to be our wide receiver one. Last year during the Giants game, like when AJ Brown was hurt, like we had it. Like I thought Jalen had one of his best passing games last year with Devontae Smith having a big game. So like I did see like him and Smitty kind of. It seemed like last year they were on the same page a lot more than AJ Brown and Jalen were. So now both of those receivers ended up with 1,000 yards, but I think Lemon is going to be like that. I think especially like when he first comes in as a rookie, like I don't think he's necessarily going to be putting up like wide receiver one type of numbers like right away, but I do think he's going to be a number two receiver. And then they also and then the Eagles also signed multiple receivers, veteran receivers as well. They signed that Dontavian Wicks from the Packers. They signed Elijah. They also signed Elijah Moore, Hollywood Brown. So they added some veteran receivers. So I think under new OC Sean Mannion, I think I think they're going to try to emphasize like Jalen being able to spread the ball a little bit around more. I think that's the kind of offense that they want to emphasize, and also still if you'll be able to have Saquon in the backfield and also be able to use him in the passing game too. I think Lemon's going to be one of the foundations for a more widespread offense with the Eagles. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking forward to when it comes to this pick. And so I do like the pick that I think he was one of the higher graded receivers coming out of this draft, coming out of SC. I think there was some like question marks, like his like interviews, like in the combine and stuff, were a bit like off, were like a little like off putting. But I definitely like the draft pick, and I also like what the Eagles have done in day two when it comes to getting the tackle from Miami. To be a Lane Johnson replacement because I wanted the Eagles because in the first round I thought the Eagles were either going to get AJ replacement or a Lane Johnson replacement. So I thought that that Howie was able to address those needs, and as well as and they also got a tight end too because Dallas Goedert's in the last year of his deal. So so I think there's also another adequate replacement for that.
Hamilton, do you have any thoughts on Makai Lemon as a rookie with the Eagles?
I think Randall's right. I could see him being the second, third option, especially with AJ. Most more than likely walking out the door. So I can see him being second, third option as far as receivers go. Um, I don't expect him to have some breakout year, but I think he could be serviceable. He's a first round pick for a reason. He has first round level talent, and so therefore I just want to see him produce. And I think he's in a great situation. I think he's with a winning culture, a winning environment. Um, we haven't talked much about the quarterback because he's definitely the quarterback. Got to throw him the ball now. We didn't talk much about the quarterback, but we can do that at a different date. So yeah, I like it.
I would say I love I love his confidence. I like when these young guys, especially these young black athletes, they come in confident, they come in ready, they're in their own skin, they're in their own element, and they're going to produce. I like that with Shador Sanders, and I like that with Makai Lemon. I think he's my early on, not favorite, but he's on my list for like offensive rookie of the year. Randall, you mentioned the guys with Hollywood Brown, but I think they'll be serviceable receivers at best. And Makai Lemon, if he can get to be a wide receiver too, I think he can put up enough numbers. But like Hamilton was saying, with Jalen Hurts still got to throw the ball though. I think he can put up enough numbers like 700, 800 yards and be rookie of the year. This is the end of the final drive here on Stacey on Sports on our YouTube channel. I am Stacey Carter II, joined by Randall Hamilton James. Follow us everywhere on social media at Stacey on Sports. We already know the NFL is going to kind of slow down a little bit going into training camp, but hey, we're going to still keep our eyes on it, especially on all our teams. And we're going to keep y'all posted. Also, keep a lookout for our content on the NBA playoffs. Getting closer and closer to the NBA finals. But as far as the final drive, we'll see y'all next time.